My office is over at the townhouse. I started last April. And as Economic Vitality Manager, my job is to help support the businesses in Concord to help them better serve residents and visitors. And really looking at how we can kind of create an ecosystem of the businesses. Is it okay for me to start?
You can start.
So one of the first projects I'm going to do, basically I've spent the last 9 months sort of figuring out the who's who and the what's what and what are some of the key challenges that are here. And what I discovered is that Concord has a very large population of older residents, and a number of our visitors are also older. And then I looked at the state of the sidewalks and the transportation and the businesses, and so I saw that there was a mismatch. And so there was a grant available from the state to be more of an age-friendly community and for the town to follow best practices. So I created a program for Concord to be more age-friendly. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about kind of what the age-friendly community initiative that was launched by AARP and as part of an international effort is, and then hoping we can have a little conversation about sort of some of the patterns that you're seeing here. Over the next year, we're hoping to kind of work one-on-one with the businesses, looking at how we can make some incremental changes. So the idea of basically we're sort of looking at how to be in a livable community in general, not necessarily just exclusively for older residents. So if we're in a livable community, and I'm sorry if I'm walking, I feel like I'm jumping ahead, but the idea is that everybody can spend time together, that you can go out for a walk, that everyone can safely cross the street. You don't have to be jackrabbiting in front of traffic. That everyone can safely ride a bicycle. That you can get around without a car, and I know that that's a key challenge here in Concord. That everyone can live comfortably, be able to kind of grow old in place, and be able to have a home that they can afford. That there's lots of opportunities to volunteer and be involved in your community. That you can enjoy public spaces, that there's something for everybody to do and everybody can access it. That you can socialize. That there's lots of ways to spend time outdoors. I know that for a number of the walking trails in Concord, they've been looking at how can they improve the accessibility of those, whether that might be making sure there's available public restrooms, there's benches around, that you know ahead of time, you know, how high is some of the grades and how many routes are there. That everyone can go and have places to have entertainment. Oops. Lots of places to go shopping. This is a little bit kind of the center of what we're going to be looking at. Lots of places to buy healthy food. Be able to find the services they need, and that's another way of sort of looking at how are some of the service-based businesses able to accommodate people. And that basically, if Concord is your home, that you can stay here forever. So the outline of kind of the AARP model is really looking at as you can see, the 8 domains of livability. It's a super comprehensive project. Some communities have created a whole kind of age-friendly initiative and looking at all of these domains. Here in Massachusetts, there was an effort in about 2018 for communities to sign on as a commitment of saying, we want to be an age-friendly community. Concord signed on to that in 2018, and from what I can tell, it's like they got as far as saying, we want to do it, and then nothing happened. So as I came on, I've been sort of going through all these different things and like, this was a good idea, and I think we should move forward on this. And recognizing that while I'm looking at this 1 year of a business-friendly initiative, I'm hoping that this might inspire other initiatives that the town might be able to do. So I know a lot of folks are now talking about housing with the MBTA communities to be able to do different types of housing, not just single family, but thinking about apartments and ones that can accommodate people who are wanting to downsize. I've been looking a lot at how can we have more benches and better crosswalks and sidewalks to get around. I've been working with Beth Williams of the Visitor Center on transportation to do a micro-transit program. It's basically like an Uber, but exclusive to Concord. That would be low cost. So it's a little bit like the COA van, but it would be available 7 days a week and open to everybody. So we're crossing our fingers for that grant. Like communication information, so just recognizing like having accessible sound equipment everywhere we go, that everybody has access to the internet to be able to get messages. You can see all these kind of different dimensions that we're hoping that we might be able to inspire. Some other communities kind of break it out slightly differently, and they think about like the built environment. So as I was mentioning, crosswalks how like for example, the senior center, that the townhouse is accessible, any place that where seniors might want to be. The social environment, and then community health, just recognizing that you can't kind of break these things out there all interconnected. So I'm modeling our work a little bit on a program out of Boston, which they've been doing an Age-Friendly Boston initiative. And so they are focusing specifically on these types of initiatives. And you can see the bottom one, which is their Age-Friendly Business Initiative. And with that, what they're doing is they have a certification program. So they're doing trainings with the individual businesses. They also kind of sign a pledge. They articulate specifically in what ways are they age-friendly, and then they get to be on this map and they are doing promotions. And as folks know, it's like this, what does age-friendly mean? And they've got, I'll show you a little bit, they've got like a little checklist. So a little bit about like why I'm really wanting businesses in Concord to think about being more age-friendly, recognizing 20% of Concord is over 60. And they're expecting in the next 20 years for that to grow to 40%. So this is not a small segment of our community. And a lot of folks forget about how much of the buying power are older residents. If they're spending 57% of people over 50, that's a huge percentage. And in Concord, a lot of the visitors, as I said, are seniors. They are representing 60% of all of the sales. So if you take up like all the money that is generated by the business, 60% of them is visitors. So we really kind of want to be more accommodating. And Concord is so lucky to have so many locally owned independent businesses, like Vanderhoof's that's been here for a long time, Crosby's, like ones that are really kind of identified with the community. And folks who live in Concord are really loyal to those businesses. So it's sort of like a little bit of like being loyal back. And if your loyal customers aren't able to get into your business anymore, like that's like literally your bread and butter. One of the things I did was I looked at what are some of the health trends in Concord. So I looked at like the health metrics of seniors across the entire state and found Concord actually has a higher percentage of folks dealing with dementia and a higher percentage of folks dealing with hearing loss. And folks maybe know that those are connected. Folks who are suffering from hearing loss are more likely to develop dementia. So I'm sort of really looking at like how can businesses, if they're sort of looking how to be age friendly, how can they really zero in of like helping folks with those particular metrics. So some folks are sort of saying to me, some of the things that about making a business more age-friendly does overlap a lot with issues around disability. So why am I not just doing a disability initiative? And some of them has to do with as soon as businesses hear that we're trying to be more accessible to folks with disability, there's something like, oh, there's the ADA, I'm gonna get in trouble, I'm supposed to be fully, like suddenly this wall goes up and they're like, I can't do anything. And we recognize that a lot of these businesses are in really old buildings. They're not going to be able to put an elevator in. We're trying to not have these businesses be perfect, but we're trying to have them edge closer. And we're really wanting to personalize it and recognize like these are your loyal customers. And recognizing that all of us are going to be moving into disability sometime in our lives. That's just a fact, like we're all going to engage that way. So I felt like this was sort of a way of really seeing a big segment of our community. And recognizing that the issues around disability it's really about our systems putting things in place. So it's not like if there's a step going up, like if I was in a wheelchair, and my mom's in one, that the problem isn't her, the problem is the step. And recognizing that how can we start seeing it in that way of like disability only becomes a factor when there's barriers in people's way, and like how can we start removing those barriers? I recognize this is not a small segment. 1 in 4 Americans has got some kind of disability. So I'm recognizing when we take care of the needs of seniors, we're going to be taking care of the needs of a lot of big other segments of our population, and hoping that we'll be able to make some of those connections. So as I've been thinking about like the business environment, recognizing that there's a couple different ways of approaching this. So it's like lots of dimensions. So about how to make a business more age-friendly would be thinking about the physical environment, the step getting up to the business, how bright is it, how have they laid out the store so that you don't trip over things. Then thinking about the sensory issues of like, Can you read the menu because it's so dark? Is it crazy loud and you can't even have a conversation with the person opposite you? Or maybe you might be dealing with some early dementia or some kind of cognitive issues. I've been seeing a lot of overlap with some issues of folks dealing with dementia and folks with autism, and there's ways in which being able to like making it not so manic in the restaurant that you're at, that can make it more of a accommodating space. And then learning and cognition, where it's like if people are talking so fast, it's like if you just slow it down, I can actually answer your questions. And then thinking about the actual shopping experience of like when you actually go into a store, is there somebody able to help you figure out like, it can be, I know every time I go into CVS and I need cold medicine, I'm like, I have no idea what they're looking for. Like, is there people to help you walk through that? If you're trying to take something off of the shelf, if you're trying to carry that thing over to the checkout, thinking a little bit about the payment and collection. I'm another one of those where it's like, am I tapping? Am I swiping? Am I, like, it can be really complicated. And this digital experience, I've been having some really interesting conversations with specifically banks that on how they're able to help seniors figure out how to set up their accounts. And some businesses are better than that than others. And recognizing more and more things, you can only get it online. I know, some of my favorite stores, I went shopping yesterday and they're like, no, sorry, you can only get it online. I'm like, oh, I really don't like doing online shopping, but everything's kind of going that direction. And there can be pluses or minuses about, I know my mother does all of her shopping online, but she has my sister to basically do all that part for us. The other part about the business is to think a little bit about their operations. So some folks have been making suggestions of like, during COVID, it was really nice when there were senior hours early in the grocery. So it was a little quieter and the staff were able to pay attention. Thinking a little bit about their marketing. I know a lot of businesses, only say they cater themselves to 25 to 40-year-olds. It's like there's a big number of people that would like to see themselves reflected in the advertising. And thinking about the employee policies. Are they hiring seniors and recognizing that this is a cohort? I hear from so many businesses that nobody wants to work. They have lots of empty jobs, and have they thought about how they could accommodate senior workers? Or are they making themselves, if they have staff that are caregivers, are they helping policies so that those folks can take time off and be able to take care of their loved ones? So this was that checklist I mentioned. This is the one that they use in Boston. You might not be able to see it. So they kind of go through one-on-one with the businesses, and this doesn't capture everything, but they sort of look at, are there doors? Like sometimes, have you ever noticed some business you go to and you can't figure out where the door is because it's like is that the exit, is that the entrance, or the handicapped entrance is in the back, and then they have to move a ton of things. I know from my mother, she's like, I just wanted to use the bathroom. They had to get this lift, and somebody had to get the key, and is it easy to get into the space? They look at things around bathrooms. Some of the things I've been learning along this process of thinking about the color contrast. My mother-in-law has got Alzheimer's, and my husband brought her to Home Depot, and it was a whole adventure in there, and she had to use the ladies' room. And he had to let her in on her own, but all the doors of the stalls were slightly ajar. And she came back out, she's like, that's not a toilet, what are you talking about? That's not a bathroom. She couldn't actually see the toilet. That was the only way she could do it. So we had to go in and it was such an example to me of some of the things that we might not think about. So how can businesses sort of see with the lens of different populations that might be coming in there? With that same trip, it was a very adventurous trip to Home Depot. She had borrowed my coat and had lost it somewhere in Home Depot. So they didn't realize until they were at the cashier. And my husband was like, he doesn't want to drag her all the way through Home Depot, the 20 aisles that they had already been. So he asked the person at the checkout, could you just stay with her? And my mother-in-law was like, what do I need to be babysitting? And the clerk was amazing. She just shut down the cashier. This always makes me a little misty. She just shut her light off, and just chit-chatted with her. And I was so grateful for that staff person who wasn't sort of listen, buddy, I got 5 other people in line, just really was accommodating. And I hear great stories about other businesses in Concord doing that, but folks might not know some of those stories. I've been hearing other ones around some restaurants, when I mentioned that overlap with autism. Have folks ever heard about the purple table? So this was a model that got developed to help families if they had a family member with autism. And if you were making the reservation at the restaurant, you would reserve the purple table. which was a table that would be set in a quiet part in the restaurant. They had staff that were specially trained about the issues around autism. And it meant that, and there were some staff that specifically really liked doing that. So that meant that the family who, would have a place to go out, and it became like the regular place for folks in that network. And sort of looking at, can we use that model for recognizing there might be other folks that might be, having behaviors that, might not be always understood if you don't know what the context is. So like that cashier, she's like, okay, whatever, kind of went with the flow. And also recognize it was a space without a lot of reflective surfaces. You don't have people bumping up behind the chairs, things that just would make it was a little quieter, all the things that would make you feel a little safer in that space. So they have a whole bunch of these little models, and we're here in Concord, we're gonna be looking at what's our checklist. And I'm so, as we go through this, wanna hear a little bit from all of you, what are some of the stores you really like? What are some ones that you used to be able to go to that aren't as accommodating, just so we can see if there's some trends here in the community. So what we're gonna be doing here in Concord is this best practices toolkit. So basically I'm going around and I'm talking to some of the businesses and asking them what are some of the things that they do right, and we're gonna kind of create a little slideshow presentation of this is how I found out Citizens Bank actually does house calls to people. People can come in with their phone or with their computer and they'll actually help them set it up with all the shortcuts so that they can able to do it. They've been meeting with people to help them do their accounts so that they have somebody to back them up. So the best practice is a little bit of help them with their, if for some reason they get locked out, is their trusted family member. So we're gonna be sort of talking to businesses of what are some of the things they do right, and sort of being able to highlight them and say to other people so-and-so's doing this thing, maybe you wanna do that too. And some of those might be simple things okay, you've got a step getting up to your business, but what if you put just a little handhold that might make a difference for somebody to get in? Or maybe you've got a little doorbell that you can go out, so instead of, folks well, I have a ramp, but nobody uses it. Well, how would ever people tell you that they needed the ramp, because if they have no way to wave at you from the outside? So we're gonna be doing one-on-one technical assistance. And then we're gonna do something similar to Boston with the certification process to be able to highlight these the businesses and what types of ways in which they're accessible. And then we're gonna promote them with a social media campaign. Discover Concord has said they'll help us do a profile, and then basically passing that around to the community. So what I've done is we've got a scope of work. The Metropolitan Area Planning Council has got some consulting that they're gonna help us, basically help me kind of set up some, we're gonna be doing a survey, some focus groups. And I guess all of you've just become my focus group. And then we're gonna be kicking it off probably in a week or two. And then a survey we're gonna put out to everybody in the community. So I kind of wanna go back and kind of threw a whole bunch of thoughts out to all of you. What I get from you, what do you think about when I say an age-friendly community? Is that something that feels good? Does it feel awkward? Do you feel it's a misnomer? Love to just kind of throw it open and have a conversation.
I think it's fabulous, number one. First off, sidewalks, just the outside, facility. Sidewalks, West Concord has done a great job of redoing their sidewalks, because that was one complaint I had. It was terrible. It was so uneven and cracked, so that greatly improved. Crosswalks are good. I think crosswalks are sufficient downtown too. One thing that I heard that I've complained about downtown, and other people have too, was in the winter when we get a significant snowstorm.
I'll be here.
Here, how about do we pass it around when people talk?
No, just keep it at me if I do.
Okay.
And too much out of that.
When we get a significant snowstorm, they clean off the roads very well, the sidewalks. But there's always this big pile of snow where the road meets the sidewalk. So when you park your car, you can't get over that mound of snow. You're either walking down the icy street to find an opening, or it's really hazardous. And others have complained about that. So I don't know how it should be fixed, but that would be better access to the businesses too. I often stay away from downtown in the middle of the winter because I'm not gonna climb over those mountains of snow and the icy sidewalks or whatever.
Thank you.
Could you just concentrate first of what you just said, because it's hard to hear.
Sure. So what she just said, she liked the idea of an age-friendly community. Talking a little bit about the issues of the sidewalks, and finding that the new sidewalks in West Concord are great, and that helps really to get to those businesses. And the crosswalks there are great. But finding snow removal is a key problem. And especially, it sounds like Concord Center is a do not go area this time of year, especially along the edges of the curb when you're trying to get from your car onto the sidewalk, that it becomes like a huge barrier. Related to that, one thing that the select board has asked is to remove, folks probably know that all of the parking meters have been deactivated, but the poles are still there,
Yeah.
and that becomes kind of where all the snow.
Yeah, they can't plow or remove the snow, yeah.
Yeah, so the town's looking at how to remove all of those poles, which might help that.
Yeah.
I know for
Yes,
myself, I kind of like the
good.
poles, it helps me.
Yeah,
keep
well,
moving. Yeah, so pluses and minuses.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
Well, I just think it's a tricky business. Talking about what's age-friendly, because there are so many variations in the aging or age-ed populations. You know, there's certainly a substantial overlap with some disabilities, whether it's hearing, vision, mobility, or whatever. But on the other hand, you know, many older people are doing okay with those things. So it's, you know, you need to avoid the stereotype while at the same time preparing for those, you know, genuine limitations that people who are older may bring.
I think Concord is such a great example. I feel like so often I go to community meetings and I'm the youngest person there. And just feeling like it's such an incredibly active community with folks taking a lot of leadership. Just echoing what you just said, to recognize that there's a huge variety among seniors, that they are not one size fits all, and everybody has different types of needs. And I feel like that's part of the lesson of this, of like, I guess I'm hoping to build empathy for the businesses for all of the needs of their customers, and recognizing that you know, their older customers, just to recognize, like, maybe have a conversation with them of like, how can they meet their needs, and acknowledging that, just opening up that dialogue, because that hopefully they might open it up for all kinds of other customers too.
Right.
So what are some of the, go ahead.
I'm having a problem with driveways. I have a snow blower, but you know, I run through, but my snow blower broke, so the last few storms I've had to shovel, and I've shoveled it all. And then the plow comes by and puts a 4-foot bank at the end of my driveway, which is compacted and icy, which makes it really difficult for me. I was lucky to get the driveway done, never mind going through a glacier. So I don't know if there's any type of snowplow blade or technique that the plowers could use that would not blockade the driveways. So I don't know if anyone else is having that problem, but I seem to be encountering it all the time.
So just repeating what she said, she's having a problem with her driveway, and I think any New Englander is familiar with this. It's finally get your whole driveway cleared out, it looks beautiful, and all the plow comes in and snows you back in, and that is the heaviest type. Sorry?
They wave that.
Yeah, they wave and like, sorry, sucker. Yeah, and that is like heavy concrete at the end of your driveway. One little trick I have heard is on the path of the plow coming forward, if you cut in on that side, the plows go along and kind of dump it before the edge of your driveway. That's one little trick I've mastered. I live on a super wide street that gets a lot of snow. But I will pass that on to DPW and see if there's the Concord Public Works, and see if they have recommendations, and especially for seniors. Are there programs to, like, you know, how do people shovel out their houses? Like that's I feel like the thing that traumatizes me most living in New England is just dealing with snow. I feel like it makes me feel really vulnerable of like if there's a big snowstorm, like it's such a huge task. Like how do Concordians typically deal with snow?
Well, I have a neighbor that has a Kubota tractor with an auger attachment, a large snow thrower, and he does help me with it. Otherwise, I don't have a snowblower, so I just have me and a shovel. And without that help, it would just be horrific.
Yeah, I used to snow blow. I have a common driveway that goes into my property, and I own the common driveway, and I would always be the one that was out there snow blowing for the two neighbors and cleaning out and going out there all the time. But I found that I never got any help from any of them coming out, and then it's to the point where you have to have a place to put the snow. It has to be go on one side of the driveway or the other side, so it's gonna go on someone's property, and they would call the police and say the snow's going on their property. And then they would take me to court, and then I would go through this big thing. Finally, I just stopped, and I made my own driveway on my front lawn, because it was, I tried to help, and, you know, and they were all older, elderly too. And then you get a new, it was impossible, so now I just don't do it. It's
So just echoing what you said so folks can hear that she had a shared driveway and was doing all the work of plowing it out, and then people got mad because she had to put the snow onto their property. So she ended up creating a different driveway just so that stopped all the complaints.
It was, yeah, it was too much. You know, for 30 years I was, and now I have, it's to the point where there's a lady's garage that's across from where I park my car in my own private driveway. And where I park my car, now she's calling the police and the constable and the courts and saying that she can't get into her garage because she bought a bigger car, so in order for her to get into her garage, she has to drive onto my driveway to get in there. So I don't even know where I can park my car anymore.
Well, I'm wondering, how do folks, in terms of like getting to businesses, so it sounds like getting to Concord Center businesses in the winter is a challenge. So how do people handle, like, are there some businesses that like, that's where you go in the wintertime, like Crosby, CVS, like, are there some that you feel like, okay, these are my winter friendly businesses in Concord?
Yeah, most of them are, and even downtown, it's really just when we have significant snow.
Yeah.
So if we
Yeah, it's
don't
just
have much snow, we're okay.
But if you think of one side of Commonwealth Avenue, a lot of those stores have steps up into it. And there are a lot of businesses thinking about them that have steps.
Yeah.
It's not helpful.
Yeah.
Like Deborah's, her old part, there's steps going up to that. The new one, I don't think there's, but I don't even think there's a railing, is there?
There's
There is
a-
a railing.
If you go in the back, there's
There's a ramp.
a ramp.
Yeah, I do that.
Yeah.
In the new store, there's not only a ramp, but there's a push button,
That's
that
right.
opens the door.
Yeah, those push buttons are a great invention.
They are.
Yeah.
I think those are, there need to be more of those.
Are those required?
So this is, my understanding of the ADA is we're supposed to be making all of our spaces accessible. But we're all falling short of the mark in lots of different ways. So we're hoping through this program to have people think about those things, and if they are able to do that, to try to institute them. So that specific, how the ADA works is not telling you, it's not always so prescriptive. They're saying like, you know, for example, it's like if you had a door that, you know, you don't have to have a push button, but maybe it's an automatic door that goes through. Or maybe you have somebody there opening it, or it could be that you have like a sensor that recognizes the pressure. Like there's lots of, you know, like many ways to skin a cat kind of thing. And that's one of the things we're hoping with these businesses is sitting down with them, helping them brainstorm of like, what are some of the, okay, maybe there's things you can't do, but what can you do? And be a little creative and recognize, okay, we maybe can't meet every problem, but there's definitely things we can do. And for finding a way to get some yeses, to make some changes. So the whole expression of like the perfect being the enemy of the good, again, we're never gonna be perfect, but I think Concord could do better. In terms of like some of the businesses that I feel like I've got the trickiest one, we've got these amazing antique stores in Concord, and I myself am like, I can't find half, it's just kind of really cluttered, and maybe that's the nature of the antique stores, but it feels like those are the most fun stores to get to go to. So maybe they might be able to think a little bit of at least have like an easier section or something, or be able to highlight some of it online so that you can then know what you're looking for, stuff like that. Did I see something like that?
The post offices, I try to go to the West Concord post office because it's all on one level and so forth, easy to park and so forth. I was just in the downtown one, the cement is coming off between the steps. And I was actually pushing loose cement out of the way the other day, just so someone else didn't fall on it. It's a real issue. And they have a ramp, but I've never had to use it yet, but I can see it's in my future. So downtown post office is not really senior friendly.
Are there other businesses that folks feel like this should be top of our list to make sure, because the post office is like an essential service.
Since I do have hearing loss, I'm particularly sensitive to the issues that arise for me as somebody with hearing loss. And one of the things that's most unfriendly, to me, is to go into an establishment, restaurants in particular, but it can be other places too, and have loud music playing from loudspeakers. I hear poorly enough in a quiet place, but if I'm bombarded with distracting sound from loudspeakers, it's very difficult to be able to just have a conversation with anybody, whether it's the clerk behind the counter or the person you came in with.
Yeah, I think that's a common thing for restaurants, is like the background noise.
Bad in most of them.
I've been aware for years of all the stores along the front downtown and even out in West Concord that have the curb comes in. Is there any mandatory thing that the select board can ask that they deal with that?
In terms of having a ramp going into the store?
Getting rid of the curb. I don't know what the process is, but there are a lot of them, and there are a lot of people that aren't going in there, they're going someplace else. That
I don't know in terms of how, one of the challenges in Concord is we've got these historic spaces, and it limits what kind of changes you can do to the physical space. And that's ruled by the Historic Districts Commission. They can basically say that they want to prioritize access. And I will, that's some of the things we want to talk about.
it's one of the things that I think is an important plus or minus for people.
So for this particular program, I'm trying to prioritize of what the businesses can do without needing the property owner's agreement, because that can take a really long time. I'm trying to hit like the low hanging fruit of like what are the things that people can do now, and hoping that can build some momentum to realize like, oh, that wasn't so hard, and maybe we can do the next step, because you probably know of like, you have to get the Historic Districts Commission, you get to get the property owner involved, they look at how long is my lease in the space. Then it's not just that step, it's like getting on the inside of the business, that loses some feet, suddenly it like opens up a can of worms. So I'm hoping of like, what are some of the things that they can do in 3 months to actually make a positive difference, and then really start pushing for the harder stuff.
Is a little ramp that goes up over those steps, is that an obstacle?
So there the question was about getting some ramps for the steps. So I think it was that I heard this from the Disability Commission that you all were talking about. Could they even have like a shared ramp that the businesses? So everybody's like, I don't have space to store it. Maybe they can just have one to make it available to be able to go around. And yeah, we're sort of want to have the businesses start thinking creatively of like maybe there's a ramp you could use. Going back to like maybe there's the doorbell idea. Maybe there's a handhold. Maybe there's a back entrance. We're open to brainstorm of like all the different ways to do. And maybe it's going to be impossible, and maybe they're going to have to focus of like on other ways to be more accommodating. We'll have to see.
Ramps are kind of difficult, and I'm only saying this from that I had. My parents owned the boathouse, or I own the boathouse with my daughter. And when I was doing I know it's a lot right now inside, but I remember when I did the boat cruises and had everyone come on the boat and gave senior free rides from here and go up to towns and things like that. And most of all my business on the boat was from senior homes and things like that. And it was hard for me for the seniors to walk all the way down from the parking lot down the back and here and there, the gravel. And I was constantly trying to figure out ways to make it easier, because when the river goes down, the ramp gets higher. When the river goes up, then you get a good level. So ramps are tough because they have to be longer than where the steps are. So if your steps are only this wide, your ramp needs to go up this wide. So at the point I made it so that now the buses and people could come down with the cars to the back of the building, and then put a long ramp from the top of the hill to get onto the boat, so there was no step. Make my gates wider on the boat so I could put a wheelchair in, make it so I could take 2 chairs out on the boat and wheel the wheelchairs on so it could be in the wheelchair, and there was no moving in and out of things like that. There's ways of doing things, but sometimes it's a little difficult, especially if you have like you're saying, shared ramp downtown. It's who's going to move it back and forth, and how far it's going to go out into the sidewalk, and people having to walk around it. Steps are hard. I definitely understand that, because we have one step to get into the restroom at the boathouse, and like you said, we put grab bars, or I do, on the outside, and that one little step that could get in, but without anything to hang on to, or something to stabilize you. Or I would just have a wheelchair that would bring the people in.
So it sounds like you're one of the businesses I want to sit down and chat with, talk a little bit about like some of the creative solutions you came up with.
Yeah, and that was, I'm talking back in the 90s, so I'm going way back.
Was it, if folks didn't hear that, she was talking a little bit about the challenges of making ramps work, because they actually take a whole lot more space to be able to get up the steps, and sometimes it's not a straightforward thing of just putting out a ramp. You sometimes have to think creatively about putting it in a whole different location and really putting grab bars, and it's not always an easy fix. So shifting a little bit, what are some of the businesses folks really love at Concord that they feel like, like I told my little story about the time at Lowe's. Are there other stories that folks have of business that they feel like they love going to that really has been great to access?
Well, my favorite store is Vanderhoof's. I'm a widow, and one time my light bulb, I tried to take it out, and I twisted it, and the whole light bulb shattered, and I was trying to get the base of the light bulb out, and I just couldn't do it, so I brought it to them, and they figured out how to do it, and I said, well, how much do I owe you? And they said, nothing. I was like, really? So Vanderhoof's is very senior friendly.
Yeah, so folks didn't hear that she had a lamp, the light bulb broke inside of it, so the little screw part stayed in there, and they came to the rescue with no extra charge, kind of took the base out, and I'm sure you bought your light bulbs from there.
I walk into Vanderhoof's and Scott looks at me and says, what's the matter? He's been fixing things for me since 1993.
Wow.
I don't know what I'd do without him, because I'm a widow.
Are you gonna say Vanderhoof's too?
Yes.
No matter what you need, they have it.
Now, Vanderhoof's is one of the few businesses in Concord that I heard of. Most of them, I don't really like any of the others are too expensive. They're for the rich.
We all miss the 5 and 10.
Open one of those again.
And nothing has taken the place of the West Concord 5 and 10. I mean, the merchandise they have is so practical and useful and reasonably priced, and nothing has changed. Just help us with that.
It was.
How about for pharmacies? I know that there's the West Concord Pharmacy.
West
Yes.
Concord.
Are those are good too?
They're
Well,
very,
what are they doing right?
they're very friendly, they're very helpful. I think that they go overboard to be accommodating. And, I guess I went in there recently and I needed a prescription filled, but I didn't need it for a couple of days. They said, oh, we have the time, do you mind waiting 10 minutes? No. And they got the prescription ready for me. I didn't have to go back. They're just like that.
Yeah.
All right, West Concord Pharmacy gets the thumbs up.
Thumbs up, 5 stars.
And they're easily accessible.
Yes.
There's plenty of parking, and usually it's clear if there's snow.
Yes.
How about Crosby's? Expensive?
It's more expensive than other supermarkets out of town, but it's convenient and good quality.
You can take the COA van over to Market Basket.
Yeah. Oh, the COA van to Market Basket, that's
And
the,
it also goes to Crosby's 1 day a week.
Yeah.
Well, Market Basket is so big.
Yeah, yeah.
Other than that, I mean, it's good, it's got good prices. It's economic.
so when you say that you like Market Basket because it's so big, is it because it's
No, I
roomy?
know it, I'm not saying I like it because it's so big, I'm saying that how big it is may be challenging to some people.
You can get a workout just walking around
You
the
gotta
store.
work out before going through it.
I like Trader Joe's, but it's not.
Yeah, Trader Joe's.
They're very friendly, very helpful.
Yeah, so Trader Joe's gets a thumbs up for variety and staff, thumbs down because it's not in Concord.
Yeah.
But it is accessible by the COA van.
Yeah, yes, that's.
Yeah,
That's
but
right.
Crosby, I'm usually at Crosby's once a week anyway. Or just, odds and ends and.
Well, Deborah's gets a thumbs up from me.
Deborah's gets a thumbs up.
Yes.
Well, what's Deborah's doing right that you like?
Everything.
Well, for one thing, I've been living as long as I have, I think mainly because I have found things there in their supplements department that have been helpful to me, health-wise. And don't cause all of the side effects that you get with a lot of the prescription medicines. And as much as I miss the 5 and 10, I also love their little area there in the back of the new store where you can sit down and have good soup. It's not terrifically noisy.
So Deborah's gets a thumbs up for the supplements and kind of the staff support to help find the right
A
fit.
lot of good stuff.
Yeah, they
support.
have
Yeah.
good stuff.
Yeah.
And their little cafe area is quiet with delicious soup. I've had many tasty sandwich in there myself.
Yeah.
Nice
And
back door.
the herbs and spices and.
Yeah, the herbs and spices too. What were you gonna say?
The back door.
They've got a back door? Yeah, access. How about for clothing? Where do folks like to go shopping for clothes?
TJ Maxx.
TJ Maxx?
Yeah.
Across the street,
Say it again?
secondhand store across the street.
Secondhand clothes store.
They have
Reflection.
Any place but
collections.
But they're getting very expensive.
They have gotten very expensive, but so has everything else.
Reflections.
Yeah. We could use a Savers store
Savers.
around here.
Oh, yeah.
You can find really good things.
How about we don't have a movie theater in Concord. If folks were going out for entertainment, do folks go to, I see there's the conservatory, with the umbrella. Do folks go out to things for fun locally?
I like to go to Opera 51 and the musicals and
Walden.
That, I don't need to go into Boston and deal with all of that, so they have great talent here.
She likes Walden 51. Do other folks go to stuff in Walden 51?
It's got stairs going up, though. I think there's a ramp on this.
There's a ramp up
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
They also have the Concord players there.
But if you go to the Concord Players and you sit in the back, on that elevated platform that they have in the back, it's very difficult from there, to see or hear.
Yeah, it is.
And it has been that way for
It's been
years
that way
and
for
years and
years,
years.
And if you have pick up one of their assistive listening devices, it doesn't help that.
Oh, really? Do they know about that already? Or should we?
Oh, yeah,
Well, it's hard to say what they know.
they know that.
Yeah.
You got it recently?
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I think one of the hidden treasures in Concord are the libraries.
Oh, yeah.
They offer programs,
Yep.
all kinds of assistance in terms of getting books. It's really one of the treasures of Concord.
She said that the Concord Library being a hidden treasure. I heard that they actually do like home delivery if you need books delivered to your house.
I don't have a problem, but friends who are handicapped, they lost their handicapped spaces when they did the expansion. And I guess there's no way to bring them back, but it makes it very difficult on the handicapped at the main library, not at
The parking is bad downtown because I think it's construction.
Yeah.
At Concord Academy. You could never park on the main street. Yeah.
It sounds like maybe they could add a couple handicap spaces. I'm sure maybe.
They took them away when they did the addition to the, what was the new
Oh, the
building?
new maker space area.
That they added.
Were you gonna say something?
Just gonna say, first time I went to Emerson Umbrella, since they've done it all over, and the theater there is excellent. What they've done, it was a Christmas production, and it was absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, the Emerson Umbrella, she's saying was a great show. Yeah, I've seen a couple amazing shows with like Broadway level talent.
Yes.
They do terrific theatrical performances, but I am lost there too, as far as being able to hear is concerned, and I think they have a fairly expensive assistive listening system, but it doesn't work for me, and I think it doesn't work for other people as well. It's when you put on a play, the actors and actresses are moving all over the stage, and unless they have a microphone on them, it doesn't matter that much how good, the equipment that you put on your head is. You just don't get it.
The Maynard Fine Arts Theater is easy to get into and there's pretty good parking.
I also want to give a shout out to this facility. I mean, I attend a lot of lectures here. I do genealogy. I think they do a wonderful job here, so I'm very appreciative.
Thumbs up to the COA. Are there some spaces, we've got just a couple minutes left, that you feel like, Mimi, you've got to talk to these people, they need to be doing a better job, that you sort of feel like this is something that seniors need and they can't access? I know for my mom, her favorite hairdresser, it's just too hard for her to get in. It was like, they had a ramp, but it was like sideways, and she's like, it was just too scary getting in and out.
I used to like to go into Joy Street, but now it seems like they have so much stuff in there and their aisles are small, and that's another place where I think there's 1 or 2 steps to get up into it.
Yeah, that's one, she's got an access, she's got a level space on the back.
Oh, she does?
Yeah, but she kind of puts all these displays in front of it. So I'll pass it on, that it'll make a positive difference if she makes it more accessible.
Do they ever rent out to other groups this building to be used for programs?
The question was, does this space ever get rented out to other folks?
Yes.
Yeah, town associates.
Other than the churches, but like a program, an entertainment program, that would, back in the old days, they would rent the space and they would put on a show on the stage. They took charge of everything, the tickets, everything, and we made money.
We'll pass it on to Eileen. Folks want some, bring on the shows here at the COA.
There's a movie here every Friday at noon.
We'll be here every Friday. Are there some service businesses that folks feel like folks have been telling me that, I know that there's some hairdressers that are doing home visits. Are there like other things that folks feel like it might be a service business that would be helpful? Or that, you know, they're not able to access? That they might need? Well, I'm gonna wrap it up. I thank you so much for these suggestions, and this is gonna be kind of an iterative process if I start going around. I am looking for a couple folks making sort of like a little team that'll actually go out and work with the businesses. So we're gonna be doing some trainings to sort of understand a little bit of like what best practices are kind of in the field. So I'm looking for a couple people that will help me go and do these site visits. So we'll go out in twos and sit down with the business and help them brainstorm. So if anybody might be interested in being part of the team with me, to basically sit down and part of, while this is a business friendly initiative and really helping support the businesses, I'm really looking at like how to build relationships. And a lot of the businesses tell me that they you feel like that the town meaning like residents, they don't have the same kind of connections. I think Vanderhoof's is maybe the exception. But they're really looking at like how can we build a network among residents and businesses, and so that they feel that kind of relationship and community. So I feel like that's my metric of success, is even if nobody can exact any of these, if we at least get people to know one another, that's part of how we kind of build relationships and eventually make positive change and understand what each other's needs are.
Do the stores, say the stores in downtown Concord, do they have a gathering? Do they have a meeting? Do they get together and say, this isn't working, this is working, how do we do this? Do they wanna work together?
So the West Concord businesses have a group
Downtown.
together. The Concord Center, not so much. There is the Chamber of Commerce, and we're gonna be networking with them. Where I'm hoping to kind of work with some of the individual ones. But for this program, I am focusing on the 3 business districts, so Concord Center, West Concord, and Thoreau Depot. And I'll probably do like Concord Market area, just to kind of include that, but I'm, not gonna be doing, not gonna make it over to Trader Joe's. And I'm not gonna work with like the Everett Hospital or the Baker area, like I'm just trying to make it like the little mom and pop shop kind of.
Is it just you, or do you have a committee that's you're working with?
I am gathering a committee, so I've got a representative from the Disability Commission. I'm working with the Economic Vitality Committee, and I met with the Council on Aging. So I've got some folks from the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. So they have some folks who are experts in public health and business development. So I'm kind of creating a little team to work with me on this. So hoping to we're still kind of fleshing out exactly how often we're going to meet. So we're hoping to have a kickoff in about 2 weeks or so. Well, thank you so much for your time, everybody, and I hope I'm trying to become a regular here at COA. I've come to a couple programs so far, so it's nice seeing some familiar faces. And thanks so much for your insight. And if you come up with other suggestions or ideas come to your mind, I work out of the townhouse, so if you just contact the town manager's office, they can reach me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.